Greetings, fellow humans. I'm MartianBuu, and today I'm going to talk about some decks that I'm excited to play after the nerfs that are coming out on the 26th. This is almost a redo of the expansion launch because Kael'thas and to a lesser extent Switcheroo kind of restricted what we could actually play with from the new set. So we're getting a new chance to play with all the new cards and see what kind of stuff we can do. I did a very similar video recently before the expansion came out with stuff that I was excited to play during the expansion launch. A couple of these decks are very similar to the decks that I promoted there, with some slight differences based off of the experience that I have had playing with the cards post-expansion. But most of them are different archetypes completely. A lot of these lists are experimental, unrefined. I have not played a lot with stuff that isn't proven just because of how restrictive the turn 3 format has been. Some of these look very promising and I'm excited to play with them. If anything catches your interest, you can check out the description where I'll have a code for each of these decks. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. And here we go. So first up we have Demon Hunter. This is Odd Demon Hunter again. I've cut a bunch of the slower stuff. I had a big Naga package in before. Now I have a much smaller Naga package. They reverted Dreadlord's Bite, which is a really good card in Odd Demon Hunter in general. Puffer Fist looked like it was going to be a pretty good card in this deck, but it's getting a nerf soon, so I figure I'm not even going to bother trying with it unless it turns out it's still really good as a 3-3. Having too many 3s in here makes it harder for Stilt Stepper to deal a bunch of damage, so it's kind of worth the cut anyway. Along similar lines, I'm not sure about Stheno and Predation, but they're really good cards, so I'm excited to try them in a slightly more serious build. It could be that Vicious Slither Sphere is good enough to run Predation just because later on in the match you have a lot more mana than you have cards, so it could be that drawing this at 3 late is fine. We have our Metamorphin package with all our cool Fell spells. But otherwise, it's just Odd Demon Hunter as we've seen it. Next up, we have Druid. So this is Cthulhu Druid without any of the Kael'thas nonsense now that Kael'thas is getting nerfed. The big additions to the deck are Aquatic Form for consistency and Miracle Growth for draw and threat. Miracle Growth is going to cost 8. It is getting nerfed, but I think it'll still be a good card. I'm excited to play with it. Now that Kael'thas and Kazakusan are both not really working in Druid, we're kind of back to pre-Onyxia's Lair, where it's kind of Cthulhu and Linecracker are your options. I think Linecracker came out on top, but I really like Cthulhu, so I'm excited to try that again, and I'll probably go from there. For Hunter, we have Secret Hunter. So there isn't much new in this one. We got this cool secret, emergency maneuvers. You could like get out a Gosper or a Cloaked Huntress, and then if your opponent kills it, it's going to be up and ready again the next turn, which is really cool. I don't have Bunker in here. Bunker always feels so slow and meh to me, but it could be that I'm undervaluing it. Over the course of 3 turns, it is 2 mana, draw 3, discount 3, so that's pretty good. But we also have like Spring the Trap, which is much more immediate and impactful as far as from my experience of the deck, but again, I could just be undervaluing it. This list has Flare in it. Flare is just kind of a good card. 1 mana spell, draw a card is just kind of good enough on its own if you're trying to shorten your deck size. And Ice Block, I think, is going to be a relevant card with Quest Mage, at least to some degree. So having the flares is good. This will probably beat up on decks like that. You have your various Spell Punishers and the flare. Secret Hunter, draw your Drekthar, ruin your opponent. Good deck. So for Mage, I really wanted to build LPG now that we have the new Kazakusan effect. This is the old effect, but it's going to be have played 4 dragons instead of only have dragons left in deck after the nerfs hit. I was kind of excited to put an LPG list together, but it was so heavy and greedy, and I don't see it being playable really to any degree. We'll see. I'll probably try it out regardless. But the more I cut, the more I was like going through all this effort to discount my deck, and then I'm just going to transform my deck into treasures anyway. It just seems better without. So I have a Naga package in here for stuff to do early, and then you activate your Kazakusan pretty easily just with Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. You play the Dragon Queen, that's 1 dragon, and then for free you play 2 more. You don't actually need that many other dragons. I will be surprised if the good version of this, ends up looking like this, but I'll experiment with it and see if I can't make a Kazakusan Mage work. But this is a hybrid Dragon Naga Reno Mage, and it seems fun to me, so we'll see how it goes. Next up, we have Wrath Paladin. So The idea behind this deck is to play Holy Wrath, draw a card, and deal damage equal to its cost with one of these high-cost minions on the top of your deck. I actually had a decent amount of success with this during the turn 3 meta, just because you could time out and use Rebuke and Loatheb to buy yourself enough time to get to the Wrath and actually finish your opponent off then. I feel like it actually will have some legs after the change, so I'm pretty excited to come back to this. Dredge is really good with Holy Wrath, so if any of your high cost cards are on the bottom, starting on turn 7, you can just put one on the top and deal that quick 20 damage. You have Cariel and Loatheb plus Giants as backup plan, and then you can always just Thakal into Molten Giants on 3 and win that way. So, cool deck. Has a couple of diamond cards in it if you like that sort of thing. All right, so this is 3 win conditions Reno Priest. We got the Seek Guidance condition number 1. We have your typical Raza Anduin condition number 2, and then you have Kazakusan with the new effect having to play 4 dragons as condition number 3. So win however you want. This deck is not really something that works in Hearthstone these days as far as just kind of like curving out with value throughout the game. We'll see. I predict mech decks are going to even out the format a little bit as far as keeping the faster / combo decks at bay a little bit. And this type of deck, I think, could have a decent chance against the mech decks. So maybe we'll get a chance to play some good old-fashioned Reno Priest soon. The dragons in here are just meant to be the good cards, so you play any 4 of those. And then your Kazakusan's alive. If too many of your dragons get ratted, you have Anduin and Seek Guidance to fall back on. This is a very greedy strategy, obviously, but I think it has potential to be cool, especially if Linecracker ends up being the default slow druid build. Next up, we have Pirate Rogue. This is kind of the format boogeyman. I do think that mech decks are going to bully this deck. I did a bunch of testing with this deck for the THL tournament series versus the mech decks, and the mech decks actually feel really good into this. I don't think that this is going to be as spooky as some people are worried about. It is a really solid deck though, so the mech matchup isn't impossible, and everything else, you're going to be really consistently aggressive into. If you don't like playing against free Shaman, this is a great way to punish those decks. The Swordfish card deals so much damage. It's a 3 mana 4/3 weapon. Sets up your 8 attack charging smite. So yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know about Deadly Poison. I've experimented cutting this for the Cutlass Courier, and that feels like it might be better, just because you want to have a density of pirates. If you go down too many pirates, then your weapon whiffs and you have a 3 mana 2/3 weapon, which is not nearly as good. So cutting Deadly Poison for another pirate seems like it might be the play. Amalgam is okay because it's a cheap pirate and it gets you another pirate. The problem is one of your other pirates have had to stick, and they all have like negative 40 HP, so it's hard. Especially in this deck, Pufferfist will probably still be very good, just because it's going to swing the mirror a lot, it's going to pop a lot of Divine Shields, and you need that density of pirates, so the bar to make the cut is a lot lower. So I think Pufferfist with -1 health will still be good. Here we have a weird take on Shudderwock Shaman. Initially, I had like the regular freeze list here, and I had like thrown in a Queen Ashara just for the sake of having a new card. Like, I don't want to show you guys a no new card deck to try out when we're trying to try out new cards, But then I remembered this card. So the Wrathspine Enchanter, Battlecry, cast a copy of a Fire, Frost, and Nature spell in your hand. So this is just an alternate route to take the infinite Shudderwock. You play this card with Spirit Echo in your hand, giving it, or if you're casting Shudderwock, return this minion to your hand, and then you can go infinite that way. We have Don't Stand in the Fire in here just to be a fire spell to cast with that, so that way you can kind of clear the board as you go. It'll make casting this easier because it does cost 1,000 mana. Bracing Cold is in here just to be a frost spell that's worth recasting. If you want to have Wind Chill or Wildpaw Cavern be the spell that you recast, all you have to do is play it, and then it's going to reduce the cost of your other spells anyway, which will be handy. The Lightning Bloom Wildpaw Cavern package is in here in case you're fighting against a lot of aggro rogues. If you get off the Wildpaw early enough and manage to keep hitting them in the face with your 3/4s, it makes it really hard for them to kill you with their weapon. I don't know if this is going to be the best way to play free Shaman, but it is a new way, and we're trying out new things, so have at it. For Warlock, we have Abyssal Curse Warlock. I thought that this was going to be super garbage, but it actually feels half decent. This is a lot like other Rod Warlock decks, but what's cool about winning this way is your curses actually kill your opponent on their turn. So if they have ice block up, it gets around that. But yeah, this is way less bad than I was expecting. We have Cold Light Oracle in here. It has synergy and anti-synergy with the deck. So the synergy with it is we want to be drawing cards and we want to ruin our opponent's hand. So this gives us the opportunity to put curses and then overdraw our opponent. But it also fills up their hand, so it makes it harder to put curses in it. So I'm actually not 100% sure on Cold Light Oracle yet, but I want to try it out. I've only played this deck a little bit, but it felt pretty decent, surprisingly, from what I have tried. And for Warrior, we have Menagerie Warrior again. I didn't really get a chance to play with this the way that I wanted to at the beginning of the expansion. So again, we're still experimenting with stuff. We did get a bit of an upgrade. We have Kazakusan in here with its new effects. So all you have to do is have played 4 dragons. All of our amalgams are dragons, and then we have the Tent Trasher as well. The Watley and the Curator are bodies that just draw 3 cards because we have so many amalgams. Any of them can fit any of the requirements on these. If you're hesitant to craft either of those cards, I would hesitate because this is a fun deck. It's meant to be fun. Other decks out there are drawing 3 cards for 2 mana right now with like Book of Specters and stuff. So if you don't have the dust to spend, I would hold on to it. But if you either have those cards already or just kind of want to build a deck like this, I think that this will be decent in these decks to kind of get to your Kazakusan, get enough Menagerie cards in hand for Baton to buff and keep you going throughout the mid game. I don't know how good any of this is going to be. I'll have to try it out, but I'm really determined to make Alexstrasza's champion work with amalgams because it's such a good card. It just needs cheap dragons to go with it. So we're going to Corsair Cash Ringmaster's Baton our way to Alexstrasza's champion being a decent card. That about wraps things up. That was a deck to play post Kael'thas nerf in every class. Let me know in the comments what deck you're excited to play, whether it be one of these or something else that you're excited to try now that the turn 3 limit has been lifted. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.